The village of Sosnovka slumbered beneath a thick blanket of snow. Each rustic log house seemed to huddle closer to its neighbor, seeking solace against the biting wind. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, painting fleeting patterns against the endless white canvas of the sky. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional groan of ice shifting on the frozen river. Artyom Petrovich, his weathered face framed by a thick white beard, sat by the window of his modest dwelling. He watched the snow fall, each flake a tiny messenger of the approaching holiday. New Year's Eve was upon them, a time for family, feasting, and the bright promise of a fresh start. Yet a shadow of loneliness flickered in Artyom's kind eyes. He had lived alone since his wife, Maria, had passed away many winters ago. Their small wooden house, once filled with laughter and the aroma of her baking, now echoed with an emptiness that even the crackling fire could not dispel. The approaching holiday served only to amplify the void. A pang of longing tugged at Artyom's heart. He yearned for the warmth of companionship, for a flicker of the joy that had once filled his life. He decided he would venture into the forest, seeking a fine fir tree to grace his home for the holiday. Perhaps the scent of pine, the act of decorating, would stir some festive spirit within him. Bundling himself in layers of thick wool, he donned his worn fur hat and sturdy boots. With a deep breath of the crisp winter air, he stepped out into the biting cold. The snow crunched softly beneath his feet, the only sound in the vast stillness. The forest welcomed him with a hushed reverence. Giant pines stood sentinel, their branches laden with heavy snow. Sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the snowdrifts in hues of pale blue and lavender. Artyom walked for what seemed like hours, his eyes scanning the woods for a tree worthy of the occasion. Suddenly a faint sound reached his ears, a muffled whimper carried on the wind. He paused, listening intently. The whimper came again, closer this time, a sound of distress. Artyom's heart pounded in his chest as he cautiously made his way towards the sound. There, huddled beneath a tangle of fallen branches, lay a small, shivering form. It was a dog, a young laiku, its silver-grey coat dusted with snow. Its eyes, wide with fear and exhaustion, met Artyom's with a heartbreaking plea. The dog was thin and weak, its body trembling uncontrollably against the cold. A wave of compassion washed over Artyom. He knelt beside the helpless creature, gently stroking its matted fur. The dog flinched at his touch but made no effort to move. It was clear the animal was abandoned, left to face the unforgiving winter alone. Artyom carefully scooped the dog into his arms. It was surprisingly light, all skin and bones. He cradled it close, sharing the warmth of his own body. "There, there, little one," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "You're safe now." He wrapped the dog securely in his thick woolen scarf and began the trek back to his village, his heart heavy with concern for the creature he now carried. The forest, once silent and imposing, now seemed to hum with a newfound purpose. He was no longer alone. Upon reaching his home, he wasted no time in building a warm fire in the hearth. He gently placed the dog near the comforting heat, fetching a bowl of warm milk and a soft blanket. As the dog lapped up the milk, its tail gave a weak thump against the floor. It was a small sign, but for Artyom, it was a beacon of hope. He named her Taiga, after the vast and unforgiving wilderness that had been her home. Days turned into nights as Artyom nursed Taiga back to health. He fed her warm broth and scraps of meat, carefully tending to her wounds. He spoke to her in soft, reassuring tones, sharing stories of his life, his hopes, and his dreams. Slowly, Taiga began to regain her strength. The fear in her eyes faded, replaced by a glimmer of trust and affection. She would follow Artyom around the house, her tail wagging furiously at the mere sight of him. The silence that had once haunted his home was now filled with the soft padding of paws and the occasional happy bark. For the first time since his wife's passing, Artyom felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling not unlike joy. Taiga had become more than just a stray he had rescued. She was a companion, a loyal friend, a reason to smile once more. As New Year's Eve approached, Taiga's transformation was remarkable. Her once dull coat now gleamed like polished silver. Her eyes, bright and full of life, followed Artyom's every move. She would race through the snowdrifts, a blur of grey against the white, her bark echoing through the silent woods. Her playful antics brought a smile to Artyom's face, reminding him of the simple joys in life. He watched her frolic in the snow, his heart swelling with gratitude. She had brought light back into his life, chasing away the shadows of loneliness that had lingered for so long. The Christmas tree, a symbol of hope and new beginnings, stood tall in the corner of the room, adorned with handmade ornaments and strings of popcorn. The scent of pine filled the air, mingling with the aroma of baking bread. Artyom had rediscovered the spirit of the holidays, a spirit rekindled by the love and companionship of a rescued dog. The day before New Year's Eve, Artyom decided to bake Taiga a special treat. He carefully measured out flour, sugar, and eggs, his hands moving with a familiarity born of years spent in the kitchen with Maria. He imagined her standing beside him, her laughter echoing through the small house. As the aroma of baking filled the air, Taiga sat patiently by the oven, her tail thumping against the floor in anticipation. Artyom chuckled, his heart full. It was just a simple gesture, but it felt important, a way to show his gratitude for the happiness she had brought into his life. He carefully iced the bone-shaped biscuits with a touch of honey, placing them on a plate to cool. The setting sun cast long shadows across the snow-covered village, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. It was a beautiful sight, a reminder of the beauty that existed even in the depths of winter. New Year's Eve arrived, cloaked in a hush of anticipation. The fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the cozy room. The Christmas tree sparkled and shimmered, its branches heavy with ornaments and the weight of hope. Taiga, adorned with a festive red ribbon, lay curled up at Artyom's feet. He raised a glass of hot tea, his eyes twinkling in the soft light. "Two new beginnings, Taiga," he murmured, his voice filled with emotion. The dog, sensing the importance of the moment, thumped her tail against the floor in response. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the distant sound of fireworks heralding the new year. Artyom thought of his Maria, a bittersweet ache in his chest. He knew she would have adored Taiga, would have welcomed her into their home with open arms. As the first rays of dawn painted the eastern sky, Artyom looked down at Taiga, her silver-grey coat shimmering in the morning light. He reached down and gently scratched behind her ears, a gesture that had become second nature to him. In rescuing Taiga, he realized he had rescued a part of himself as well. The emptiness that had haunted him for so long had begun to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and a quiet contentment. Taiga, once a symbol of the harshness of winter, now represented the enduring power of hope and the transformative nature of love. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the snow-covered landscape in a golden light, Artyom Petrovich smiled. He was no longer alone. He had Taiga, and together they would face the coming year with hearts full of hope and the promise of shared adventures. The new year had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the life of Artyom Petrovich, a chapter filled with the warmth of companionship and the enduring spirit of love.